Well, Juma, if there was ever any moment to say Nigeria's economy is on the brink of something big, this must be that time. Now, President Tinubu has just signed 4 game-changing tax reform bills that could redefine how the nation manages her money.
Indeed, Victor, we're on the right track, economists say, and it's not just paperwork. Think simpler taxes, fairer rules, and finally, some breathing room for small businesses. I mean, if you're earning less than 85,000 a month, you won't pay a single kobo in income tax. Victor?
Indeed, that's not just reform, it's relief. A serious lifeline for the average Nigerian and for the thousands of SMEs out there just struggling to survive. Could this be the fresh start our economy has been waiting for?
Of course, we have to say goodbye to the FIRS as we knew it. There's a new sheriff in town, the Nigerian Revenue Service. Sleeker, smarter, and set to go digital first.
Well, the FIRS had its time, but the NRS is all about collecting smarter, not harder, with more autonomy and a clearer focus. This could actually reduce the usual tax confusion that we all dreaded.
And with the tax ombudsman and appeal tribunal in place, taxpayers finally have somewhere to turn when things get murky. It's transparency with a capital T. Victor.
Indeed, that's capital T. But you know what, Jumai? For years, navigating Nigeria's tax laws felt like trying to read a map with no compass.
Yes, Victor, and that's changing fast. The new Nigeria Tax Act has merged all these outdated laws into one clear and unified code. No more guesswork.
Streamlined, simplified, and even tackling digital services and virtual assets. Nigeria is finally stepping into the modern tax era, and about time too.
And we have some guests joining us this morning to tell us more about the new tax logs. I can tell you today's episode will be worth your time as always. Thank you so much for waking up with us this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. I am Juma Yesov.
And I am Victor, as I also welcome you to the first episode for the week and the last for the month of June. We will, as usual, bring you the newspaper review. All right, thank you for being there. And newspaper review is up next. Please stay.
And our newspaper reviewer, Chukwudi Okolubaja, is seated in the studio. Good morning, Chooks.
I am sitting, really, my dear.
But we had a swell weekend.
I rested over the weekend. I slept some. I did.
If not that you said it now, I was in doubt if you were sitting. But when you said you are really sitting, then I agreed.
I was perching, eh?
Good morning.
Good morning, Victor. Good morning, Victor.
I didn't sleep well because our area yesterday, I didn't know what was happening.
Did you hear me complain good morning into him?
Go play good morning.
Good to see you.
You know, Chooks, yesterday I slept early, but I don't know what was happening in my area. There was a shootout. It went out for some time.
You're not a hinterland dweller like me. A shootout where? You're in Abuja metropolis.
Yes.
Shootout,
we didn't know what was happening, but the guns were just going.
That's not good news.
That's not good news. So we couldn't sleep.
We feel that if there's security for anyone, it should be for people in the metropolis of Abuja.
No. It should be for all. It should be for all. You start?
Okay, let me lead with the leadership. All right, and the lead story here reads, Ganduje, Kwankwaso's supporters plot next move. Say Ganduje embarrassed Kanu. Insists he was forced to resign. Almakura, Akume, Sani Musa, Darie, likely frontrunners for APC chairmanship from North Central. Party neck will decide, and that's credited to the spokesman. Quite a number of riders there, and that story is on page 8. And just above that, in that tiny strip, ahead of NEC meeting, PDP rift over Anyanwu's return deepens. That's on page 9. Okay. Above that story, 149.39 trillion naira debt. Sustainability risks loom as states' liability surges. To get details, head for page 8. Above the nameplate, Saudi Arabia okays burial of late Dantata in Medina is on page 9. And just beside it, mischief makers behind SGF sack rumor, says FG, page 23. And just a few more to the right in those boxes. On the right, why Tinubu is visiting St. Lucia, according to the presidency, is on page 26. Soldiers kill terrorist kingpin in Meidada, recover weapons, is on page 9. Dangote's 720 billion naira CNG drive to save Nigerians 1.7 trillion naira, lift 42 million MSMEs, is on page 28. And finally, NDLEA nabs ex-international footballer, 4 others with 22.6 kilograms of cocaine. It's on page 19. Do you mind?
Interesting. Let's quickly go to the business Nigeria. And above the masthead, we have Start Bank reward stakeholders post 84% asset growth. And Fubara disowns 2027 campaign gear, says he wants peace. Find the details on page 2. And below the masthead, heavyweight stocks lift NGX as market claims gains 1.4 trillion in 1 week. As in business, you find the details on page 2. The headlines: Nigeria's debt trap deepens as borrowing soars over 1,000% in decades. You find all the details on page 1. And let's quickly go to the side piece of the picture story. You see there, analysts urge calm as banks chase capital, assures payout. And experts, investors back Tinubu's bold tax shift. You find the details on page 2. Ocean emergency, scientists sound alarm on Nigeria's coastal decay. Fishing communities watch their livelihoods wash away. That's a kicker. And at the bottom plate of the business NG, Jonathan, why I refuse to flee Aso Rock during Yar'Adua's health crisis. You find the details on page 9. Let's quickly go to the national economy. The national economy has, above the masthead, Nigeria tops global electricity access deficit for 3rd straight year. You find details on page 4. FG EU UNICEF launched to 1.7 billion naira social safety net. Details on page 5. And below the masthead, despite NIMASA spending 45 billion on training, Nigerian seafarers decry discrimination, bullying on board ships. You find all the details on page 4. And counting economic cost of unrest in Nigeria is on page 10. If you want to learn all about it, you go to page 10 of the national economy. Mr. Chukudi.
You know, my honorable friend will say, you journalists, they're terrible. Why would Jonathan be thought of as somebody who could have, fled Aso Rock because of the headlines you couch? The commander-in-chief should be the last person to run away.
No, he said during Yar'Adua's
health. I agree.
So he wasn't commander-in-chief.
So he wasn't commander-in-chief then.
No, he was the
potentially,
vice president.
Potentially, well, he was supposed to have filled the blank.
There's so much talk about Jonathan.
But it's okay. It's okay. Jonathan is a man I like a lot. I can't just be talking about the Zamfara governor only, and DLA man and all that. Let us also talk about Then the Yar'Adua he eventually took over from.
Yes.
Let us have them meek and gentle. It will help us have time.
I've always said that the former president Jonathan has an innocent soul. That's the way I describe it.
He wouldn't hurt a fly.
No, he wouldn't.
But then in management, sometimes that becomes a problem. You should also know when to tell some people to go to hell. When you're commander-in-chief.
Exactly.
But it's okay.
Some people interpret being meek as cowardice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, some people interpret
It is not
that
cowardice. Actually, it takes more character to say, why did you call me stupid? Than you too, you're stupid. It takes more character. That's the truth. Yeah. But it's okay. They can't all be the same. I mean, our commanders-in-chief.
Front page of the leadership.
Yes.
Abuja and Kwankwaso's rivalry.
You know, I don't like to talk politics when I come here because those people, I never understand them. I don't want Juma and Chukudi to start singing, he's a man of many words as a politician. But then they are at the center of our daily life.
Yes.
So we must talk about them. Now, Ganduje has resigned, yes. And Kwankwaso's camp would naturally begin to move to fill in any seeming blank space somewhere. I don't think there's ever a blank space in politics.
No.
Everything is a calculation in politics. What concerns us at the end of the day is how does it all percolate to food on the table for those of us who are voting them in.
Yes.
So, in fact, sometimes I say, why is it that they are the ones who choose who's going to be the flag bearer for anything? We should have a say in it. Because sometimes politicians actually give you a candidate you don't like. And you could say, if you don't like him, why don't you just vote against him? Who told you, what makes you think that the other camp is also giving you somebody you? But then that's how politics goes. Yeah, they will always sort themselves out. We will write the stories at the end of the day.
Like you say, the common man, does the common man have a choice?
No, you don't when it comes to political calculations. You don't have so much choice.
And closely related to that is mischief makers behind SGF sack rule.
Una Sakam, Una come put them back again, eh? Victor. It's you I'm talking to.
I don't catch you.
No. Somebody now told me that, do you know why I respect NTA? While other stations were taking it, NTA did not take that story.
You know,
we waited for
I am old-fashioned, and I'll hate to come here and sound like a sycophant because I'm not one.
Yes.
But I told them a journalist platform where people were saying, who watches NTA? I said, keep quiet. NTA is still the all-rounder broadcaster in this country. Exactly. BBC type.
Tell them.
Do you understand it? Social media thinking mentality has taken everybody to politics and governance. Help us deal with them. Then you see combative broadcasters.
Yes.
In fact, they are now activists. Let's not go there. You know?
Okay, but
then nobody listens to us when we talk like this. Because you have a generation in a hurry. What is their culture? That's a question I ask. You know? They are talking about the debt situation. Nigeria's total public debt put at 149.39 trillion naira as of 31st March 2025.
Over 1,000%
you would
in decades.
Yes, you would in decades. So it's not about the current administration really only. Even though people are beginning to say, hey, I think we are borrowing a bit too much. You understand? And they are saying increased borrowing and impact of currency depreciation, you know, being behind this, particularly due to Naira devaluation. Naira devaluation, economists will tell you, has its own advantages when you talk about export and all that. But it does seem that the few Naira notes in our pockets can't quite cope with the spiraling inflation, so to speak. But at the end of the day, economists who work in government will tell you that certain things are not forever. Let us be fair. Let us say the way it is, but also criticize government when we should, because we are the watchdogs. Food prices have dropped. Apart from tomato, pepper, remember I go to the market now, oil, palm oil, then...
onion is still expensive.
Onion has come down a bit, you know. Compared to 6 months ago, I think it's a bit better. So maybe at the end of the day, things will, you know, stabilize. Well, the word stabilize may not be the most appropriate, but things will become more manageable. Yeah.
Okay, ocean climate change, ocean emergency. Quickly, scientists sound alarm on Nigeria's coastal decay. Fishing communities watch their livelihoods. Why?
What exactly are they complaining about there? Because when you talk about oceanography things, Is it the pollution that is getting too much into the ocean? Or is it the melting ice that is now increasing the volume of water in the world? Because things that were solid before are now flowing. So it depends on what they're talking about.
We're talking about environmental disaster driven by unregulated development, illegal wildfire exploitation, and policy failure.
Environmental hazards. Environmental hazards. Otherwise, even the plastic you're dropping into the gutter and the waters is a problem. I keep telling people that when you see a big fish come out of the shore and die, check the bowels. It's full of plastic.
All right.
So there are so many things that abuse the ocean.
It's time to let you go. I just want to mention, maybe because you're from there, that indecent dressing now attracts 50,000 naira fine in Delta.
Who told you I'm there? I'm from there.
Are you not from there?
Have a nice day.
I just wanted to mention.
You might have a nice day.
Have a great day, Chukwudi.
Thank you, Chiksokami.
Bless you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Good Morning Nigeria continues after this break. Please stay with us.
Thanks so much for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria today. And to begin our conversation on Nigerian tax reform, let's take this background report put together by Timothy Yusuf.
In what many are calling a bold and necessary step, President Bola Tinubu has signed into law a sweeping set of tax reforms that could reshape the way taxation works in Nigeria. The bills, which were passed on June 26, 2025, represent a significant shift in how the country collects and manages taxes with a clear focus on simplicity, fairness, and growth. At the heart of these reforms is a commitment to making Nigeria's tax system more transparent and less burdensome, especially for those at the lower end of the income scale and for some small businesses trying to stay afloat. Experts say these new laws not only aim to streamline tax collection, but also create a more unified and efficient system across all levels of government, from local councils to the federal capital. One of the major highlights is the consolidation of various tax laws into a single, clearer code, making it easier for citizens and businesses alike to understand their obligations. The reforms also restructure the nation's revenue service, introducing a new coordinating body that should help reduce confusion, eliminate redundancies, and improve dispute resolution. Notably, the reforms paved the way for a rebranded Nigeria Revenue Service, replacing the old Federal Inland Revenue Service. Importantly, these changes are designed not only to tidy up tax administration, but to boost Nigeria's tax to GDP ratio, which currently stands at a modest 10.8%, with a target of reaching 18% by the end of 2026. While the new laws are set to come into effect on January 1, 2026, the conversation around their potential impact has already begun. There's cautious optimism in the air, with many hoping that this marks a turning point in how Nigeria funds development, supports businesses, and creates a more equitable economic environment. Now, let's bring in our guest in the studio for deeper insight into what these reforms really mean for everyday Nigerians and the broader economy. Stay with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
All right, Timothy Yusuf, very many thanks for that background report. And to bring in our guests into this conversation, let me introduce Professor Uche Uwaleke, who is a professor of capital markets at the Nasarawa State University, Kefi, and President, Capital Market Academics in Nigeria. Always our pleasure to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thanks so much, Victor. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, also joining us here in the studio is Olufemi Olamide. He is Head Fiscal and Tax Reforms Implementation Division and Special Advisor, Tax Policy to the Executive Chairman, Federal Inland Revenue Service. Thank you very much for joining us on this conversation.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure
I was wondering if I should introduce you as SA to the chairman or FIRS, if that hasn't changed.
It has changed, of course, with the accent to the law. And also joining us is Dr. Ni Akinsiju, Financial and Investment Analyst and Chairman, Independent Media and Policy Initiative. You're welcome to
Pleasure as always. Very well. Good morning, Nigeria.
Yes. And joining us via Zoom from Lagos is Dr. Muda Yusuf, Chief Executive Officer, Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprises, also former DG, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, gentlemen, welcome once again. Let's begin. Of course, let me begin with the FIRS rep. Now, these laws represent a sweeping attempt to harmonize tax policy in Nigeria. What challenges did you encounter while making these laws? Well, which has become one law now. Okay.
Oh, thank you very much for this question. You know, FRS is just a party to we're just a member on the table. So the law is all-inclusive. So you know the head of the committee, which is Mr. Taiwo Idele, of course, is from the private sector. And what it simply means is that the government was very interested in making a law for Nigerians. So he said, let's bring the people who are actually intermediaries to the people who pays this tax. So at least someone who understands it, who understands the need, and who understands Nigerians. And so let's give it a Nigerian face. So what it simply means is that the president was very interested in the economy, not in revenue. So what it means is that, of course, the more the economy grows, the more revenue will grow. So for us, the challenges that came when we were on that table was first, Nigerians trusting government, that government wants to actually do the right thing. And of course, you can see from time and how we got to where we are. This has been the most inclusive legislature, I think, legislative instrument or document Nigerians would have had. Because I don't know at any time where the discussion of tax has been as much as this. So also the challenge, when you talk about challenge, when the bill was being drafted, there were, if you know, the numbers of people who drafted the bill, I don't think I can count at my fingers. Almost everybody, or every sector was involved. And every sector made representation. But even when the bill was not espoused, a lot of people still say, oh, we were not carried along. And that made the debate even more interesting. So what the biggest challenge was ensuring, was getting Nigeria to trust the system and to understand where government is going to. And we thank, good thanks that today Nigerians are better for it. And those challenges have been surmounted to a great extent. If you see the debate, and again, it's not just about the masses. You can see that the debate went through the political ranks, the governors, the industry leaders, the academics, and the rest. So almost every strata of the economy posed a challenge. However, you can only surmount a challenge when you have gone through it. So, and we've gone through it, and today the bill is live. We believe that this is just a pedestal we will stand on, and Nigeria economy will be better for it by the time we start implementing on 1st of January 2026.
26, yes. You know, we like the fact that the tax bill went back and forth, you know, weighing the pulse of Nigerians and how acceptable it is. You know, it's a major overhaul of the Nigerian tax system, effective, you say, from January 2026. Professor Owaleke, can you walk us through the tax changes, the key changes in the tax reforms, the 4 tax reforms? Just walk us through it. And we're talking about implementation also.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tumai. Of course, let me even start from where he left off, that the new tax laws will actually double charge the economy. The new tax laws are a lot more progressive, a lot more fair than what we used to have. If you look at the whether you're looking at the personal income tax or you're looking at the company's income tax, looking at even the value-added tax, you realize that what we now have is, a more progressive, and equitable, tax system. Yes, of course, you know that as we speak, because this one will kick in by January, we still have myriads of, tax laws. So the challenge of consolidating these tax laws, was quite huge. And these tax laws have now been consolidated into 4 main, tax laws. As a matter of fact, the omnibus one that consolidates them is the Nigerian Tax Act. Okay? So we have the Nigerian Tax Act, which has succeeded in consolidating this, all these laws. Of course, you know that some of these laws even dates back pre-independence. So one of the things it has also done is to, modernize the, tax laws. So the Nigerian Tax Act is the overarching one. In it, you now find a consolidation of the personal income tax, the company's income tax, the value-added tax, stamp duties, and all of that. So that is what you have in the Nigerian Tax Act. Okay? It has also streamlined the multiplicity of taxes. Officially, we are told we have as many as 60, different types of taxes that, businesses grapple with. So today, that has been, streamlined and consolidated into single digits. So that is the main thing that the Nigerian Tax Act, has addressed, consolidation. And as I said earlier on, also ensuring that the tax system is progressive. Let me give some instances in that particular Tax Act before I move on to the other ones. A good instance is talking about progressivity is in the personal income tax. As you know, today, if you're earning, even if you're whatever you're earning as an employee, you pay tax. Because the first 300,000 naira of your income is taxed at 7%. Okay? But right now, for the very first time, we are now having a tax-free exemption threshold of 800,000. So if you're earning 800,000 naira, you no longer pay tax. Okay, so except when you begin to earn from 800,000 naira, 801 to...
That's per annum or per month?
Per annum.
Per annum.
Yes.
Above 800, you pay tax.
Yes, you pay from between 800 and 3 million. You now begin to pay 15%. And then what it has also done, is to increase the marginal bracket. Currently, the marginal tax bracket, the highest is 24%, those earning above 3.2 million. But today, it has moved that to 50 million. So until you earn above 50 million, you won't be paying as much as 25%. So what it has done is to, again, move the tax burden from the low-income earners to the high-income earners. That's why I talk about progressivity, okay, fairness, equity. That's for personal income tax. For companies' income tax, you also notice that because today, any company that is even making loss is expected to pay tax. I'm sure many of us don't know that if a company makes loss, the company is expected to pay 0.5% tax on its turnover, even when the company has made loss. Ideally, companies shouldn't pay taxes on losses. Companies should actually pay tax on profit. But this is the current situation. So what this, again, Act has done is to abolish that. Okay? And it has also raised the threshold of exemption from 25 million to 50 million. So today, if your turnover is not up to 50 million, again, you're not going to pay tax. Again, you can say it is progressive. It's also something that will also enable small businesses to thrive. Okay? Now, the good thing is that, yes, we're exempting you from tax, but you're also filing tax returns so that the government can have your records, so that the government can also use that to encourage you, okay, to grow. Because ultimately, when you grow, you enter the tax bracket and you can also, pay tax. And, going forward in future, with all this data the government will have, it will form the basis for some interventions the government will be making. So if the government is saying we want to give money or intervene in small businesses, they know who to give those money because they have their records. So you can see the advantages. You also look at the case of, VAT, value-added tax. Again, in the Nigerian Tax Act, okay? Again, it has been made more, I keep saying it, equitable. Okay, because that progressivity, equitability, fairness is very key.
At 7.5%?
Yes, it has been retained at 7.5%. It was not increased, remember? All across us, West Africa, okay, the rate VAT is higher. All right? And why I'm saying VAT today is better structured than the current system is the fact that today, even when you pay VAT as a business, you don't stand the chance of getting your input VAT. Okay? So most people because when you sell your goods and you charge VAT, okay, when you purchase the goods, for example, and you paid VAT on those goods and eventually sell them and charge VAT, you don't recover the ones you have paid. That's the current situation. But now, this law has made it possible for those who incur input VAT to also recover them. All right? So that is that also goes to tell you that these reforms, have been all embraced. Now, coming to the other one. The other one is we have the Nigerian Revenue Service Establishment Bill, which affects the
FRS, yes.
Now, FRS the mandate has been broadened, okay, to now be the single collector. It's SFR now collecting anything that is called now tax with respect to the federation account, as opposed to what we have now where they are duplicated. Today you have customs collecting, you have the master collecting, you have port authority collecting. So now it is centralized, just as we have in some other countries. And the good thing about it is that it is going to plug leakages. It is also going to encourage efficiency in tax collection. Okay. Then you also have the Nigerian Joint Revenue
Board. The
Joint Revenue Establishment Board. What that has done, again, is also, in addition, strengthen the Tax Appeal Tribunal and also establish the Office of the Tax Ombudsman. For the very first time, we're having the Office of the Tax Ombudsman. People don't know the difference between the Tax Ombudsman and the Tax Appeal Tribunal.
Okay, explain to us.
Okay, now, right now we have the tax. If you have a case, the tax authority has assessed you, and you are challenging the assessment, for example. Okay, of course, you can go to the Tax Appeal Tribunal and challenge that the assessment is wrong, or they are giving you penalty and you think it's wrong. You can go to the Tax Appeal Tribunal. It's like a quasi court. Okay, decisions there will eventually be, of course, if you're dissatisfied, you can still go to the Federal High Court. Okay, but currently, if the tax authority, for example, comes to seal up your premises, they come to seal up your premises, or you're not happy with the kind of services they're rendering, who do you complain to? Nobody. But the new Tax Act has now made it possible for you to do that by creating the Office of the Tax Ombudsman, so that if you have such issues with the tax authority, you go to the Tax Ombudsman, who will mediate and ensure that your rights are, guaranteed.
Yep.
So that's the difference between the Tax Appeal Tribunal and the Tax Ombudsman. Finally, we have the Nigerian Administration, Act. That's the fourth one. There are 4 of them. Okay. Again, this one is also, seeking to uniform tax administration, such that you don't find a situation in which the different states will have different laws that are in conflict with respect to, tax. It's also in this Tax Administration Act that you find the VAT sharing formula, specified, where the federal government says, okay, now we'll relinquish 5% of whatever we are used to get to the states. It's also in the Tax Administration Act. You have the issue of derivation principle with respect to the horizontal allocation of taxes. So the 4 tax laws, in a nutshell, okay, in my view, represent a major bold step, okay, in domestic revenue mobilization in Nigeria, and I have no doubt that the tax laws, if well implemented, will go a long way in helping small businesses and also increasing disposable income. And these things I've said now, I mentioned them only yesterday or 2 days ago in an international conference, in Spain on tax reforms, where I want to share the experience of Nigeria on tax reforms.
All right, Professor.
Let me land by congratulating the that committee, ably led by Mr. Taiwo Yedele. They did a fantastic job. And I think it's congratulations to them and to the National Assembly too that supported it, the governors, and to all Nigerians.
Thank you, Prof. I think it goes a long way to show that when it's all-inclusive, he spoke to it, when it's inclusive, remember we're talking about retaining VAT at 7.5. That wasn't the original proposal. But along the line, people prevailed, on the committee to retain it, and that happened? Because I know we had a lot of conversations while the tax law was
that proposal was based on the fact that the committee thought it was to rebalance the tax system in favor of indirect tax. The committee recommended a reduction in companies' income tax from 30% now to 25% ultimately, but again that was not taken. So if that VAT had gone up, the balancing aspect of it would have been a reduction in the company's income tax.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, so again, it pays tribute to pulling everybody together, hear from all sides, and then decisions are made. Now, Dr. Akishiju, from an investment and policy perspective, especially when we talk in terms of ease of doing business, what's your evaluation of the tax reform?
I must again join Professor Waleke to congratulate FRS and all the other stakeholders, that brought these acts alive. Starting with the president who initiated the move in the first instance. We all were living in a chaotic tax fiscal environment, and hopefully we are waiting eagerly for January 1, 2026, when this new tax acts will kick into life. Now we are certain that we are going into a future that is structured, and what I see, just like Mr. Olarinde noted, it's the president's emphasis on the economy. While there's a general perception when you're talking about tax reform, about intentions and objective of raising revenues, principally, when it's principally the objective when you say you want to reform the tax laws and all that, the government wants to earn more, from taxation. But what we are saying here is more of giveaway, government giveaways, more or less, of its potential revenues. For instance, especially at the level of the states, don't forget that states rely more on payee, and if you are exempting that large chunk, of 800,000 per annum, that forms the bulk, of payees at the state level. So if you are exempting them, it means that you are taking away possible the larger chunk of annual income from payee. So again, that also shows that when we talk about a huge population, of course, has a default in the sense that you have a large number of very poor people. So if you are talking about huge population, how do we translate that huge population into a market, in the real sense of it, effective market, where purchasing power is eroded, it's not enhanced, and of course you have limited disposable income. So when you have a tax law like this that exempted that huge chunk of people, from that bracket, it does mean that you are enhancing income, and of course you're also enhancing disposable income. So to that extent, it will mean that you have more money, people have more money now to spend. So what government has done is actually to helicopter, more money into the pockets of Nigerians. And then, of course, this will have on the balance, to my mind, is a demand and supply thing. So you have now enhanced effective demand, because when before those people in that bracket were being taxed between 15 and 19%, I'm talking about close to 200,000 of that 800,000. So it's as if the government is gifting Nigeria in that bracket about 200,000 to do whatever they wish to do with it. And I think where we will see the first manifestation of this tax gifting, as it were, will be in the area of fast-moving consumer goods, because these are items households in that category spend more money on: food, paste, soaps, and other of such. So you see more money now, of course, going into that market. And as it's also going to that market, it will also enhance, that market, and of course enhance manufacturers in that market. So the value chain is to see expansion now, along that line. And if you see expansion, it also means that possibilities of more jobs being created. And for me, jobs creation had always been the headache for the Nigerian economy. What can we do that the economy will produce more jobs? In a big way, these tax laws had laid down the foundation, for this economy to start creating jobs. And again, when we extend that to the corporate tax, especially the gifting, I want to use the word gifting more or less, because governments generally don't give. So when you see again that you have a small business and that you have a business from a threshold of 1 million to 50 million, you are not going to pay tax, And of course, it does mean that for everything you earn, every revenue you generate within that year, you are likely to plough back, into that business. And you are ploughing back also means that you are expanding. If you expand, you have 2 employees, in a particular year, and of course nobody had come to knock on your door to take a share of what you are supposed to pay. You plough back, you expand, you employ more. So to a large extent, the economy will start creating more jobs. And that is a major, accomplishment. Even if that is the only thing, the tax laws, as it were, can achieve. And then we can still go on. In fact, I was in an engagement about 2 days ago, and the agreement was that, look, these tax laws are not meant to make money for the government. It's just about creating opportunities in the economy.
It's all about creating opportunities in the economy. Let's now bring in Mr. Muda, Dr. Muda Yusuf into this conversation. You've been listening to the guests talk about the tax laws, breaking it down for us. Let's get your opinion. What does it mean for the private sector, small businesses? As we can see from the tax laws that have been passed by President Tinubu, it's a breather for private businesses, don't you think?
Yeah, thank you very much. I don't know whether you can hear me. The audio is a bit weak, but just as the guests in the studio have said, I agree with their position. We expect that this will bring a whole lot of value to businesses. It will impact on government revenue and the capacity of the government to support, the private sector by way of, investing a lot more, especially in infrastructure. So generally, and all those who, played a part in ensuring that you have this legislation. But having said that, we must also accept the reality that there is no legislation that is perfect. So as we progress with the implementation, we should, be mindful of the fact that we may need to fine-tune this legislation as we go along. Because, of course, the Tax Act has been based on a number of assumptions. Some of these assumptions, as we progress, may not actually, stand. So we must position ourselves to be able to review the legislation as we progress.
Lost connection with Dr. Okay. Yeah. We may have lost connection to Dr. Muda Yusuf, but we thank you very much for what you have said. He says we should be open-minded because we may not have heard the last of the tax bill. Yeah. But let me get back to Mr. Olamide. How will the Nigeria Tax Administration Act, as it is now, address issues of multiple taxation, for instance, which remains a major concern for businesses?
Okay, thank you very much. From what everyone has said, one of the major principles of this reform was harmonization. So you can only, when you have many people doing the same thing, you don't expect them to do it the same way. And also, you don't expect that efficiency. So when you talk about multiple taxation, and you mentioned the Nigerian Tax Administration Act, so the Nigerian Tax Administration Act and in fact, all of them are even talking about harmonization. So for the Administration Act, today, all the laws we have an administrative provisions. And the administrative provisions are not the same. So what it means is that when you collect CIT, that's companies income tax, there's an administration for it. When you collect capital gains tax, there's another administration. You collect stamp duties, there's an administration. You collect value-added tax, which may not be the same, which means it's not the same day you are going to file returns. It's not the same day you should pay some taxes. It's not the same day you should remit. So because of this staggering, it impedes the ease of compliance. Today, everything has been harmonized, so it makes it easy. Now, talking about multiplicity. Now, this is a single rule now for every government. It's a single rule. You know, we have 3 levels of government in Nigeria, and the same way we have 3 levels of tax administration. So now this provides a single rule for them. And also creation of the Joint Revenue Board is to what? Standardize tax administration to our practices across the 3 levels of government. So the Nigerian Tax Administration Act, the harmonization, bringing just one act, will reduce the issue of multiplicity of tax processes. And also, when it comes to taxes, you would have heard the president talking about reducing the tax heads too. So now, this also sets the pedestal for even further discussion, and which the committee have also been doing, reducing our taxes from over 60. People have been using the word 60. I'm sure nobody actually knows the numbers, the number of taxes we have. But at the last count, it's about 60. So today, we're trying to reduce it to something in the single digits. That's 9, at least 9. So that, and that is addressing the issue of multiplicity of taxes. So Nigerian Tax Administration Act is an harmonized act that ensures that every level of government, irrespective of where it is, whether at the local, the state, or the federal, has just one law for administration. This helps to also, so look at the issue of tax ID. Today, the tax identification number, every state wants to issue their own. The Joint Tax Board have been trying to have one single one, but they are issuing now. However, you go to many states, they tell you, oh, sorry, we don't identify it, we use our own. So this we further standardize. And when it's standardized, if you move from one state to the other, you already have a tax ID. And your information can be synchronized, and you can continue from there. So you don't have to pay a tax you have paid in one state before now. There are some states today when you present tax clearance certificate from another state, they don't accept it. So you have cleared. A state has given you a tax clearance certificate because you are their residents. You know, tax is based on residence. So if you reside in a state, you have a tax clearance certificate. If you go to another state and you have something to do there, and there's a requirement for tax clearance certificates, if they ask you, you are not the resident of that state, you should be able to tender a tax clearance certificate you obtained from another state. But today, many of them will not accept it. They'll probably serve you another assessment. But this standardization, and we ensure that this can be done. And this will reduce the multiplicity of taxes, because you will not need to pay another one if you are not said to be a resident of that state.
And that's what's killing business, is the multiple taxation across the country. I hear that Dr. Muda Yusuf is back on Zoom. Dr. Muda Yusuf, can you continue with your opening statements?
I don't know, the internet is a bit bad, but if you can hear me, just to draw attention first to how effectively we can onboard the informal sector of the economy. all of these conversations seems to concentrate and assume that all economic players are in the formal sector. In the informal sector, we don't have the kind of documentation, the kind of record keeping, the kind of accounting records. They don't have audited accounts and so on and so forth. So, and this sector accounts for a huge chunk of the Nigerian economy. If you look at our agricultural sector, for instance, if you look at our distributive trade, for instance, they are dominated largely by the informal sector players. So as we progress with the implementation, I think we need to be very creative in how we onboard the informal sector segments of this economy in a way that it will not disrupt their activities. And we also need to be careful the way we use data, because there's a whole lot of emphasis on data. Because we have had an experience in the past where the FRS liaised with the banks, appointed the banks as collecting agents, and the banks were just arbitrarily looking at people's accounts. Once you reach a particular threshold in terms of your accounting records, they debit you. In fact, sometimes, most times, they froze accounts of so many people on account of taxation and disrupted a whole lot of businesses. So we need to be careful, how we deal with the informal sector and how we properly also sensitize them. That, for me, I think is very, very important. Then on the issue of harmonization, again, that is very good to, stop all the leakages from all the agencies. But again, we need to also watch out to ensure that we don't disrupt the activities of some of these key agencies of government. Because you know what it is when you move all the revenues to a central point. When it now comes to releasing the revenue for their operations, it becomes a completely different matter. Because centralization is good, but centralization will also have its own issues, particularly in terms of bureaucratic bottlenecks in budget releases, which many agencies have complained about. So these are areas I think we need to watch out for as we progress with the implementation of these laws. But generally, they are very good, and they, of course, they are commendable.
Right. Okay, thank you so much. We need to remind our viewers that you can send in your text messages so that you can contribute to this conversation ongoing. We're expecting your messages and your questions. Okay, Victor.
All right, and let me get to Nia Kishiju. Now, the president spoke about fiscal refoundation, if I got that right. What exactly does that look like in practical terms for investment and policy watchers like you?
Well, I think principally it's about structuring the economy in a way that attracts businesses and investments. The Nigerian economy is the source of foreign inflow. We should first thank the domestic investors. The domestic investors are driving the Nigerian economy, as it were, beyond oil, where you have foreign companies thriving. We're also now seeing a cadre of Nigerian investors and operators in the oil sector, especially those managing the marginal fields and all that. And of course, not just even managing the marginal fields. They are actually now buying out, the international oil companies, especially on the onshore, the offshore segments of the business. So I think principally, if you have a tax regime, that defines in clear, predictable manner, what the fiscal regime and the fiscal administration of a jurisdiction is. It is easier for an investor somewhere, to analyze the kind of environment, and we're talking about ease of doing business now. And that is what foreign investment is all about. It's about understanding how that environment operates, how easy it is to come in, how easy it is to come out, to get out. And to get out relates to the fact that you are bringing in so much fund, you are able to, of course, repatriate your fund. So the fiscal and the monetary authority working together, would of course ensure this. And I'm seeing, in the Nigerian Tax Act mostly, and the Nigerian Tax Administration Act, I've seen a number of these, where exemptions are made, clear exemptions are made. We have seen the economic development tax incentives, where clear exemptions are made, not just in favor of the investors alone, but again to also, secure the Nigerian national interest too. We have something akin to that presently, but this talks directly to how you come in, the tenure, of that incentives and all that, and of course the percentages as it is. Well, we also saw in that act, the Tax Act, that new premium is now placed on solid mineral. We now know that we have about 72 solid minerals, in Nigeria, and with differential, duties. The differential rates that when you come into this space and you are interested in this particular solid mineral, if you produce this much quantity, this is the rate you will pay on it. That is clear. It is unlike when you come in, as you are excavating or you are engaged in production, some hooligans will come and harass you and determine what you pay, on the spot and all that. So it's about structuring the economy. Even in the oil sector, as old as the oil sector is, we are seeing there is a need, for structuring, for clear, predictable, regime, For a long time, some of us have campaigned that we don't even know the quantity, the volume of oil taken from the Nigerian space, the volume of natural gas taken from Nigerian space. But now the law is saying that the upstream regulatory authority should have an idea of what will be taken out of the country at least every month, and that what is taken out of this country will be the measure will be determined at the pump head. But these are things that were not usual for us. People who we long time have not been so conversant with the oil sector. More than 30 years ago, that I heard about moonlighting, where you say it's an industry term for topping up. You have an approval to move 500,000 barrels. You top up with 300,000 barrels. Who does that goes to? So these are questions that have been answered, by the Tax Act. So structuring the environment, the fiscal environment, help both the foreign and of course the domestic investors to predict and to know the route, the pathway into the economy.
Indeed, the pathway to the economy, and the President has always said we need to diversify our economy for the country to work. Professor Walake, let's talk about the broader implications of these reforms on, inflation control, GDP growth, and attracting foreign and domestic investment. I'm talking about the 15%, tax for multinationals.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Maybe I'll even pick it from there. The minimum effective rate for multinationals. Yes, we have often said that the primary goal is not to raise revenues of the tax reforms, but the fact remains that revenues will grow as a result of these tax reforms, including through the leakages, plugging leakages, including through minimizing tax, avoidance, schemes, and including through broadening the tax base. The minimum effective rate is just one of them. Okay, that's studies have shown. We have, evidence to show that this country. I think one of the reports I saw by UNCTAD, United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, was talking about the billions of dollars Nigeria loses, every year through illicit financial flows, including through this base erosion and profit shifting. The fact that multinationals take their profits to tax havens and deprive Nigeria of the taxes that they should have collected. So what this tax act is saying now is that if we find that you have paid a tax that is far below what you ought to pay, you should top up. Okay, you make sure that you pay at least 15%. Okay, in line with the OECD pillar, pillar 2. While, of course, Nigeria is part of the UN tax treaty that is, going on now. There is this UN framework, convention on, international tax cooperation, which Nigeria is, part of. But the negotiation will not end until 2027. So while that is on, okay, let's get these companies to at least pay the minimum, tax of 15%. Okay, so that way I expect that the government will get more revenues. Okay, more revenues will also come from even the CGT, the company's income capital gains tax has also been increased from 10% to 30%, for companies. Again, to avoid companies that have been, doing what is called tax avoidance. Tax avoidance is when you try to reduce your tax liability, legitimately. So these laws, also seek to check tax, avoidance schemes, okay, and tax planning by companies. And as a matter of fact, if you want to engage in tax planning, you should also, disclose that. So, and for individuals, I think this is important too, for individuals, to operate a bank account currently, okay, tax identification number is required for companies, okay, corporates, and businesses related. But right now, the Act says that even now, as an individual, to operate a bank account, you need a tax identification card. Tax identification card will now replace a tax identification number. Okay? The idea, again, is to broaden the tax base and to ensure that people who should pay tax, are also paying tax. But what Dr. Moda Yusuf mentioned is also very important, in terms of implementing this aspect, to ensure that the banks don't, again, abuse, abuse this.
Because they're taking our money already.
So the point I'm making is this, that yes, the primary objective is not to raise revenue, but if you look at the way the tax system has been structured now, the broadening, the plugging leakages, again, waivers are being streamlined. All these waivers that we used to grant, okay, the pioneer companies relief, okay, is now going to be replaced by the, I think, economic development levy. So when you look at all of that, revenues will grow, no doubt. Okay, so the challenge for me now will be how to deploy these revenues, okay, to ensure that we have, at least increase in the provision of public services, okay, to have, attention should be paid to education, for example, health, and social security. In other words, to ensure that we have deployed taxes in a progressive manner, which is good. The other next stage is also to ensure that the deployment is also progressive, equitable, such that you are in the process reducing inequality. In the process, you are also promoting human rights, which obligates access to education, access to health, access to food. Okay, so these are things I think we should be also be looking at. So what do we do with the huge money we are now going to generate? Because come to think of it, taxation remains the only sustainable, compared to oil revenues, okay, compared to borrowing, taxation is the major source. Let's not even look at debt as revenue. Major source of revenue for governments is tax, okay? And you can see what has been happening to Nigeria that relies on revenue. Look at the volatility in the oil price. Today, what are we witnessing? The budget for 2024, okay, the capital component has been extended, implementation, to the end of this year. Why? Because of the drop, okay, in revenues, and particularly the oil revenues, or the fact that loans you said you would get, didn't come, as expected. So the taxation, increasing the tax base and tax revenues will go a long way to sort some of these things out. So I am saying, I am submitting now that this is the time to also begin to, we have done the one leg. The one leg of it is the ensuring that we generate revenue. The other leg is how do we deploy this revenue, in an equitable manner? So that's also what I think the government should be concerned about now. When this money comes, how do we really, and where do we really deploy them? Yes.
And that explains why there's low morale when it comes to paying tax. I think it's a question of trust. But we have some messages that have come in. Akeju Olagbaju is saying that the effect of the reform may not transform to good governance. Nigerians are not afraid of paying tax at any level if they prosper in economy. Excluding large categories is like shutting their voice because they are not taxpayers and can't make a request or query unjust spending. Yes, consolidation may be good, but a progressive economy will decentralize tax to states for equity and development. And I have one more. Please, regarding the tax reform bill, which has removed cost collection for some revenue-generating agencies, like customs, how do you think those agencies are going to carry out their operations effectively and efficiently? Is there any provision in the bill that will allocate a certain percentage of funds to those regulatory agencies? Perhaps FIRS will have something to say.
Can we take all the text messages here so that we save time? Time is going. Let Akeju Olagbaju says, again, paying tax is an important part of civic duties. Why do we exclude large percentage from performing the duty instead of focusing on improved economy to encourage them to perform the duty? Another one said, good morning, Nigeria. The new tax reforms law 2025, when implemented, will help in growing our economy. It will help our informal sectors to thrive. It will also encourage investment. And above all, it will add value to our economy. And let me add to that before I come to you. What role, how can the big corporations be brought on board to ensure that they pay their taxes, and how will it reflect on the common Nigerians? Because when they pay huge taxes, usually like something like DSTV, before you know it, they are telling you you're going to pay 30,000 naira because they are taking it from us.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me start with if there is any provision or there are any provisions to ensure the funding. I'm sure that's what...
To agencies like
to agencies.
Yeah.
So nothing in the bill have stopped the funding of agencies. So you, government, trying to plug leakages by trying to see how we can bring all the collection to one basket does not mean stopping these agencies from their funding. No. So, in fact, that is a matter of budgeting, and it's a matter of government chooses how to fund the agencies they run. These are government agencies, so funding them should not be a problem. However, there's going to be increased revenue due to plugging leakages. Even it's going to reduce even the cost of collection, because if many people are collecting the same thing, everybody have different costs. Now one person is collecting everything. It reduces the cost. It provides more money to even fund those agencies. Now, like you said, nothing in the bill is stopping anyone. So if it is about funding, it is assured that these agencies will be well funded. So I believe that. So you want me to take all the questions?
Yeah, I know you can address the ones you want to address.
Okay. So the last one you spoke about, okay, someone said, why are you excluding some levels of Nigerians?
Yes, you said.
One thing I wanted to say is that we were taught by professors and the rest in the university that the essence of tax is to generate revenue. Now, I think we are rewriting that aspect now. Many of us taxmen whose job is to generally generate revenue, and we are now talking economics now. We are talking about how do we support businesses to grow so that in turn we collect taxes. So now when the president has one slogan, which is a policy statement for this work, he said we will tax the fruits and not the seed. We will tax prosperity and not poverty. So these people who you are talking about, though people say they are the larger part of the society, but how much do they bring, how much do they actually earn?
Like a barber's shop.
So how much do they actually earn? So are they breaking even? Do they even have enough Because if you see many of them, they still depend on other people who are. If you go to a barber shop today, it tells you it is 800 naira to barb. After barbing, many people leave the. If I give him 1,000, I walk away. And why? That's even contribute part of what he earns. So what we're saying is that the president said, no, leave these people, let them grow. And when he was signing, he said, we want to help them to get to their destination. And where is their destination? Everybody wants to break even. So let's make them grow before taxing. That's it. I think I will leave the rest.
Okay.
Except you want me to address one of the ones.
We will also leave the rest until later because we have to pause here to take a break. And when we return, the conversation continues. Please don't go away. All right. Many thanks for staying with us. We have been discussing the recently signed into law Tax Act. The benefits, are there challenges, are there things to do over again? Well, all of the issues are on the table. We've also been taking messages. I don't know if Prof will want to respond to some of the messages, but I have one more.
I have one more too.
Okay, which says, Anthony from Ilorin is saying, good morning, Nigeria. What are the benefits to civil servants knowing fully well that the taxes are from source? That is, they have no control over it. How do they feel the short and long-term positive effect?
Well, he's speaking to the social contract. Yes, the taxpayer has done his bit. The government is also expected to, yes. So, you see, that was why I was making that point, that, hand in hand, we should also be looking at what to do with the revenues that will be generated, okay? Now we have a tax system, as I said, that is fair, progressive. We should also, at the same time, be telling the public, it should be part of the communication, that these are also what we'll do with the money when the money, is eventually raised. And I want to, keep saying it. Anything that will reduce out-of-pocket, people's out-of-pocket spending, okay? Take the case of health, for example. People spend so much on health. The National Health Insurance Scheme coverage is still very low. Okay, can we use part of the money to, scale that National Health Insurance Scheme? Can we use part of the money to also ensure, even spend in education? When I say education, functional education. And by that I mean ensuring that people who, want access to education should have it. All right? And when I say education, I'm particular about when I say functional. I want to also emphasize, that aspect. I don't, for example, subscribe to the idea of having everybody jump, for example, using 170 as cut-off mark. Yeah. So I think this is the time for the government to spend on public service to ensure that only the people that should be, for example, in the university system are there. So if you have an exam that is over 400, we raise the bar to reduce the 200, for example, reduce the number that will go in there, okay? So, such that you now have an opportunity to invest in technical, colleges. Recently, I read that the government was planning to make technical, colleges free, and I said that is the way to go, okay? So, in the case of universities, for example, there should be no reason, in my view, where universities should be accepting, WAEC results, for 2 sittings. Okay, when you raise the bar, you are trying to ensure that only those who should be there, actually there. And the student loan scheme, again, can be scaled. So education, functional education is very key. Emphasis should be on STEM subjects in secondary schools. And in our universities and tertiary institutions, we should also try to intentionally promote those programs that have direct bearing to our developmental challenges. Talking about agriculture, you can see the food challenge we have today. Talking about engineering, talking about IT. Okay, I'm talking about medical sciences. Okay, the other day I ran into some people abroad, and I was asking them, what are you people doing here? They told me that they're working. I said, but what did you study? They told me that they studied various courses in Nigerian universities, but when they moved over, okay, they had to change.
To skills?
Yes, to skills, so IT related, and that's also what is giving them the job. So what I'm saying is the kind of education the emphasis we are giving here, we'll need to, have a rethink.
Okay.
To promote only those ones that I said that, so that when students finish from schools, they don't begin to carry certificates all over the place, applying for jobs.
Okay, let's get this from Joel from Enugu. He said the tax reform law seems good and timely. However, emphasis should be more on the rural sector, production. Taxation works better only in an economy anchored on production.
I think that's one of the objective and emphasis of the Tax Act. I am personally impressed that the focus is on production and productivity. It has been an area of advocacy for me, because my concern actually is that if we sincerely, by data, we have close to more than 100 million Nigerians living under the now new $2.5 poverty benchmark. And if you have such people, if you have such number of non-economic agents, to circle them out, you need high, enhanced, increased production, in your productive area. And so it would mean that you grow the economy in a way that it will impact the poor and lift them out of that circle of poverty. So to a large extent, we need more industries. I am also an advocate of the service sector. Some people have said the service sector in Nigeria do not produce jobs. And I said no. The emphasis on production and creation of jobs are actually moving away from farming and manufacturing to the cloud. We are now having more jobs in the ICT sectors, and therefore the government, and I see, of course, that government is also trying in this aspect. We know of the 3 million tech being led by the Ministry of Communication. So many programs being led by NITDA, and I also tracked technology activities in the Ministry of Agriculture. So what I'm trying to say essentially is that there is a need deliberately, to drive production and productivity, to increase GDP. Just like the finance minister said, the target is 7%. When you are able to achieve that, it will naturally percolate, into the economy, and of course, create a new set of economic agents. Those who are dormant now, those who we describe as people living below the poverty line, needs, to be brought out of that community, become economic agents, and of course, they also enhance effective demand, which of course again impacts revenue going forward.
All right, thank you very much, I'm just wondering, beyond structural changes, what strategy does the FIRS have now to engage Nigerians, create awareness and encourage voluntary payment of taxes?
Thank you. Well, tax education is key. And this has been one of the mandates of the FIRS to educate Nigerians on their tax obligation, and not just obligation, and their rights. So because for everyone who has an obligation, they also have a right. And so the awareness have started. That is why I'm here today. This is about the third interview I am holding since the signing of this the Tax Act. Aside from this, there are several other targeted awareness you'll be doing with different bodies, and that's FIS have a FIS set up a division to on tax reforms implementation, and this is very targeted to ensure that everything is done well. We also have multiple bodies that targeting multiple offices, targeting the both sensitization, but whether at the media level, whether print media, also going to, someone spoke about the academia, having a relationship with them. And so we are open to all of them. We've been speaking to many other agencies, and we are open to speak. And town hall meetings and the rest. Some were even inviting for something in the Southwest next week, which we also be doing. So FRS is also ready when it comes to, this is supposed to ease tax compliance for citizens. And so we've digitized most of our systems, and that is to ensure that for everyone who wants to comply, it is going to be easy. So it reduces the cost of compliance for every businesses. So FRS is open, and FRS is ready. Efficiency is our major name now, and because we know we have much work to do. So for tax education and awareness, we are open and we'll be here anytime.
What about coordination? The Joint Tax Board coordinating the federal and subnationals?
Now, of course, you know that the FIS chairman is the chairman of the Joint Tax Board, which will now be the Joint Revenue Board. What it seems is that we provide leadership at that level, and we continue to speak to everyone. So when it comes to the Joint Tax Board, the Joint Revenue Board now, one of the essence was to standardize tax system in Nigeria. Also, we reduce costs for the tax authorities across board, because there are some services that individual tax administration across the state don't need to do. The Joint Revenue Board could take on them and ensure that every state can tap from there. Which FI has been in that room, we ensure that nothing but the best is being done. So coordination, we provide the leadership. Of course, we know in Nigeria today, when it comes to tax administration, FIS cannot be said not to be at the forefront.
You provide leadership, but are there risks that this new tax could be abused or misapplied at the state or local level?
Okay, when you talk about risk, of course, for everything you embark to do, there are some challenges that people will foresee. The states, at the beginning of this discussion, had said, oh, you are exempting some class of people who will think who are our major, but when you bring statistics, you look at it, okay, are there areas you have actually not gotten to too? So is there what you need to get there? Like looking at the people at the high end and looking at the people at the low end. Prof mentioned that for the people at the high end, they may be paying a little more. And when we say a little more, it's just 1% actually. That is, so the rate, marginal rate is increasing. Before it used to end at the 24, now it's moving to 35. Sorry, to 25. 25. So it's just 1%. Why the other one? So there is a little 1% of the high end may even take care of more than 50% of the lower end that we forfeit. So at the end of the day, these were the challenges which everybody have understood. And for the tax system, we believe that the more, it's also going to broaden the system. And the more the system is broadened, the more revenue comes in, even for the states. And now, actually, coordination becomes better because they understand now that it's not just about having too many people in the basket, but having too many people who will talk whether quality. Now we're talking not about quantity, but about quality. So that is what the system and the risk there has been that they are laid has been taken care of. So for us, the law also does some level of ensuring that people does some level of check in its own too. So it checks that where people want to abuse, there is a way of addressing them. Prof talk about the Office of the Tax Ombuds, and now it was emphasized that it should be a tax ombuds because where taxpayers have issue, they have who to run to. Also for some level, to check some level of abuse that you've spoken about.
All right, thank you very much. I'm just wondering, let's talk about the MSMEs. The understanding is that we have up to 60 or more than 60 million MSMEs in Nigeria. What strategies should be in place that the new law does not stifle them, but rather encourages them to grow?
Yeah, I think first there's this saying in Yoruba land that a child that wants to be picked up must first avail, the person that wants to pick him, the spread of his hand, we did a study about, I think recently, about 3 or 4 weeks ago. We just thought we should just do a snap survey of how Nigerians, especially the youth, deliberately seek information relating to business. And from that study, we realized that, especially among the youth that we classified between 18 and 35, less than 25% went out of their way to seek information. And we thought this needs to be addressed. The preference for this category of people mostly are news that traduces government, sensational news, and others, well, to some extent, news around the digital world. So what I'm trying to say, in essence, is that there is a need for the Nigerian entrepreneur, either intending, or those actively involved, to seek out information. The new tax acts are viable, functional information. But if you depend on hearsay or second-level transfer of information, you are not likely to use them effectively. So the appeal, well, it is not enough, again, for the FRS to go, or the Revenue Service, to go around talking about what the new tax regime entails. There's also a need to galvanize Nigerians to believe and trust in what government and its institutions are doing, and that for every program, there are possibilities and opportunities inherent, in those programs. So we have MSNEs now. The truth is that in Nigeria, starting from January 1, no MSNEs in Nigeria will pay tax. That is a huge relief. So it does mean that if your turnover this year, at the end of this year, it's 10 million, for instance, no tax man is going to worry you.
Okay. Professor Waleke, the law takes effect from January 1st, 2026. What should businesses and citizens be doing now to prepare for it?
Yes, a very good question.
Yes.
You say it was intended to start in July, but now January. And I think it's that window, is a very good one. It will allow for, adequate preparation before it takes off. Look at the case of the Nigerian Revenue Service, for example. The mandate has been, expanded. So for me, I also expect them to use this window of this period to upgrade their infrastructure, IT systems, and also ensure that proper internal controls are put in place, for them in the Nigerian Revenue Service, training and retraining of their staff, including matters to do with ethics. Dr. Moda Yusuf talked about, the bureaucracy that will come with it. So this is the time to really address some of these challenges. I also think this is the time to embark on the this proper communication, communicating with the citizens to have their buy-in, to ensure that their confidence is also built. And one of the ways I want to also emphasize and reiterate this point, one of the ways we can do that, when we are communicating, we don't just go with one hand and say, these are the taxes and whatever. We should also, the second hand should be what we intend to do with the money. So I intend to see in the 2026 budget, for example, 2026 budget, I want to see that these reforms, that will ultimately lead to increase in revenue, I want to see them reflect in the 2026 budget in terms of priority allocation. Education, health, and food. We should be able to say, because of this increase we are getting, we intend to also increase the money we are putting into, these areas.
Okay, your final words.
Well, thank you very much.
In 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you very much for bringing me here this morning to speak about this laudable transformational tax act, we are very optimistic that Nigerians are going to be better for it. And, you know, this has not happened for a while. And for everyone, we are getting to a new era, and we believe that this is the way to go. Nigerians are better for it, and the FRS, transition into the NRS, is ready for better tax administration.
Like the president said, Nigeria is now open for business, so people can come in with their business. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Mr. Olufemi M. Olarinde, Head Fiscal and Tax Reforms Implementation Division and Special Advisor Tax Policy to Executive Chairman, FIRS or NRS now. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and we have thank you so much, Dr. Ni Akinsuju, Financial Investment Analyst and Chairman, Independent Media and Policy Initiative. As usual, it's a pleasure.
Thanks so much for having me.
For your contributions to the conversation. And Professor Uche Owaleke, Professor of Capital Market at Nasarawa State University, KEFI, and President Capital Market Academics in Nigeria. Thank you so much. You just came back from a trip and we just grabbed you. Thank you so much. And Dr. Muda Yusuf, who joined us from Lagos. Unfortunately, the Zoom network went bad. Chief Executive Officer, Center for the Promotion of Private Business, and also former DG Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We thank you so much for your contribution. And for those who send their messages that we can't read now, we deeply apologize. Please send your messages on time so that we can be able to read them and the guests can respond to them. Thank you so much for watching Good Morning Nigeria today. I am Juma Yusuf.
And I am Victor, as we will see you again tomorrow.